Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Brad Imes to defeat Rashad Evans. And I'm here to talk about Ed Herman versus Zach Cummings at light heavyweight in 2023. Alright. Yeah, look, this fight, it's a curveball. Ed Herman is 42, Zach Cummings is 38. Herman hasn't fought in 2 years. Cummings hasn't fought in 3 years. And both these guys are past it, I'd say. And even though they haven't been knocked out a bunch as of late, just if you put them in against any sort of a young killer or whatever, I'd be picking them to get knocked out. Put them in against each other, I think it could be a slower fight that allows both these guys to have their share of slower moments, you know. But I'm thinking Zach Cummings is going to have more, to be honest. Ed Herman's always been slow and plodding. He's always been tough. You know, proof of that, look at his last loss to Alonzo Menafield, where he just got the shit kicked out of him and got his calves kicked to shit. But he's always been tough. He's been defeated every which way. He's been victorious every which way. You know, you can't point to anything and say, oh, he's got weak this or weak that. He's seen it all at this point. You know, again, he's been in the UFC straight for 16 fucking years. He had one fight that wasn't in the UFC, and it was against Jacare. Now, but even that, he wasn't cut from the UFC. The UFC sent him to Strikeforce after they bought the company to fight on their final show, I think. But the guy, he hasn't been cut in 16 years. It's fucking phenomenal. And when I say 16, I mean 17. And Zach Cummings, he himself, he's been in the UFC since 2013. He's 38 years old, which is a little better. You see a lot more 38-year-olds than 42-year-olds. But with the inactivity, 3 years off for him and whatever, I can't bet on this because I don't know what the fuck to expect. If I could bet on an injury, I'd bet on an injury. But Cummings lost. Look, he's lost 2 via submission, 5 via decision. You know, he's been submitted by Gunnar Nelson and Tim Kennedy, but otherwise, he's pretty much the submission artist in most of his fights. And I do think if Ed Herman was totally past it, Zach Cummings could get him out of there with a submission down the stretch. You know, Herman's got 6 losses via submission, plenty of subs, but generally, I'm staying away from this because I don't know how it's going to go. I think when guys are this far past it, the knockout is much more likely than the submission, and they both have good hands. They have good pop in their punches. They may not be the biggest knockout artists, but they've gotten knockouts at the UFC level, and Cummings definitely, I think, is the sharper fighter at this point. So I'm picking Cummings to win. I guess I'd pick him to win by decision, but no way am I betting on that because there's just a lot going against both these guys. But I expect a slower fight. I do think the fact that it's slower and the fact that Ed Herman is also fighting an older guy, it could allow him into this fight. And I'd love to see Herman's wrestling take over and whatever, but I'm just picking the guy that I expect to be the sharper athlete at this point. And they're both well-versed guys, so that guy's Zach Cummings. Zach Cummings by decision is the pick, and the bet is no fucking way. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.